church's website soon, along with Karen Kinay's talk on weary and worried. If you are interested in any of the handouts from past times that you missed, I would be happy to get, I have those handouts available. As well as Eric Wilder's talk on social media is up on the website under the Mom to Mom. You go into the Trinity website, Women's Ministry, and Mom to Mom. If you started to clear out the clutter after last week's talk, I wanted to remind you that the church is collecting different items for the Love Project. Some is picture books, which I have a million. I'm excited to go through and donate those. And also, you can put some things aside for the church's free tag sale, which will be on May 20th. So, in 2 weeks, I thought we would do something a little bit different since it will be our last mom-to-mom meeting. I will be sharing with you information about finding quick ways to meet your family's nutritional needs, getting information from Cheryl Davis, who unfortunately couldn't talk. This is going to be a very brief talk since I'm going to be giving it. It'll be like 15, 20 minutes because I really wanted us to have more time to fellowship together, to talk about all the different topics we've discussed in the spring session, because a lot of times talks went long and we had a very limited small group time. So I thought we could use this opportunity to have a lot more time to discuss these topics, talk about something we might like to hear next year, and just to fellowship with each other. So in the light of it's being a talk on nutritional needs, I thought it would be fun to have a giant salad bar and have a salad lunch. So after the talk. So we're thinking the leaders would be bringing different kinds of greens, and we would, if you're able to, we would love to have everyone bring something you like in a salad. And it could be anything you want, from cucumbers and tomatoes to strawberries to, if you're running late on time, want to grab some dressing or croutons, whatever you have, we'll make a big salad bar and everyone can help themselves, and we'll have time to just really talk, which I think will be good.
Amy, is that March 30th?
That is April 6th. April 6th is our last, the first Thursday in April, because we meet the first and third Thursdays. So that's...
Oh, we first and third.
But yeah, we've been meeting the first and third. That will be our last meeting. The third Thursday is April vacation, so that will be our last meeting for the year. So it will be a kind of a nice way to gather together, discuss what we've learned, and can talk about summer plans and spring plans and stuff too. So anyway, I have come up, and we'll hand these out in the small groups. Top 10 questions to consider to help your marriage thrive. So these are things that I'm thinking I'll probably need to just work on one, focus on one myself at a time. Number 10, do you really want an answer to the question, or do you just want your spouse to confirm what you already decided? That was the one I learned the hard way, is that my husband I realized that when he was like, the answer's B, the answer's always B, you want the choice B, and I realized I really just wanted him to confirm what I decided. I wasn't really, asking his opinion as much as just a confirmation. All right, number 9, do you want a relationship, or do you want to be right? Because often we want, particularly in, when we're first married, we want to be right. But sometimes it's more important to put that aside, and you don't have to be right. You need to just focus on the relationship. Number 8, are you trying to change your spouse, or are you leaving that to God? My husband says a kind of funny statement in that when you go into marriage, women think that they can change the man, and men think the women will stay the same, and they're both wrong. Because, we have all these good intentions that they'll, to get them to eat better and exercise more and do all these things, but they have to make those decisions on their own. And, when we become mothers, we change quite a bit, because our direction and focus is on this new little life, and sometimes I don't think our spouses realize that at a time. So number 7, are you frustrated that your spouse just never seems to follow through on all your hints to do something? Guys really don't get hints very well, for the most part. Some guys might be very intuitive, but I remember for many years hinting and just being surprised that my husband didn't pick up on all of these hints, like, oh, we haven't been out for a while, oh, this really needs to be done, and nothing, you know, it was just like, yes, but nothing happened as a result. Whereas I think as women, we make it a slight subtle hint, and a woman immediately picks up on that. Whereas guys are sometimes clueless about things like that. Nothing personal. Number 6, are you communicating that your spouse is valuable through your actions? Your everyday things that you are doing. Number 5, are you loving your spouse unconditionally despite your feelings at the moment? So, which is a really hard thing to do, because, you know, if you've been married for more than a few weeks, you don't always feel in love. So, number 4, are you taking time to actively listen to your spouse? And also figuring out what actively listening means to your spouse. For years I thought, well, I'm listening, I'm putting away the dishes, and I'm listening, and I'm doing this and that, but for some people, active listening means you need to stop everything and look, have eye contact. So number 3, are you keeping the courtship alive in your marriage? Taking time for your together for the two of you. Number 2, are you honoring and respecting your husband? And interestingly enough, I showed these questions to Walter Muti, and he, because I was like, well, I don't really know that much. And most of these questions are given from books and lectures, and then just my personal experience. But that he talked about how that is so key in a marriage, and that even after over 30 years, they ask each other, is this respectful to you? Is this loving to you? And I thought, wow, I mean, it was just an eye-opener, because I don't think that I often communicate and ask those questions. Because often what we think is respecting is not what they're thinking is respecting, and vice versa with loving as well. And number 1, are you putting God at the center of your relationship? Making that a priority. So now I will introduce Carl and Kathy Blatchley. Carl and Kathy have been married for 50 years. Wow. They have 3 married children and 9 grandchildren. Carl is an engineer, and his hobbies include computers and boating. Kathy is a registered nurse, and her hobbies include cooking and reading. They worship at Grace Baptist, and we really miss you guys here at Trinity. Their passion is their family and family ministry. And I have missed the talks, the Sunday school classes you used to give on marriage from years back. All right.
Now you can give a whole Sunday school class on marriage without any problems whatsoever. You would do a great job.
Please have some notes that might be helpful.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
So, Amy, thank you for the nice introduction and reminding me that I'm clueless.
I know you well enough, so I figured I could say that.
Yesterday, we read the 10 items that you sent us in an email, and identified with every single one of them. So Kathy and I haven't prepared any fantastic or terribly organized thoughts this morning, although we do have a few points that we'd like to make. We thought we would keep it really informal. And if there are questions you've got, feel free to interrupt us. Feel free to ask clarification questions. We'd also like to make sure we leave some time open at the end to just answer any questions that that anybody might have about anything that's related to marriage. And I should probably point out, she said we were married 50 years, but so to make the math easier, we got married at age 12. So Amy, what time would you like us to finish so we make sure we give your small group plenty of time?
Like around 10:30.
That sounds great. So we think there are many things that can contribute to a strong marriage. And we think 3 of them that we found particularly effective are shared goals, shared friends, and shared experiences. All 3 of those have contributed significantly to our marriage, which has not always been good. We don't have it all together. We've made lots of mistakes. If I had an opportunity to redo my marriage, I would do quite a few things differently. But we've learned from some of those mistakes, and we've tried to establish some ways of relating to each other and relating to others around us, which we have found that worked good in our place, in our situation. We'd like to pass them on to you.
So, we really would like this to be an informal session or that, talk to you as friends. As Carl said, we've been married a long time, and we do not have the perfect marriage after 50 years, and probably even have 10 more years, whatever we have of marriage together. We'll probably still not have the perfect marriage after that many years, because I don't think there are any perfect marriages. I think that we journey along with the partner that we have chosen to journey along with, and that life comes at us and it changes, and so we are on a journey together. And so if you think of yourself as being on a journey with your best friend, and hopefully the person you're with is still your best friend, or you can make them your best friend again, that's what's important. And then I'm going to say one more thing. Janie Parker said to me, you get so much information thrown at you, and you can't take in everything. So if you take one thing away from here, that's good. That's really good. If we can give you one thing to help you in your marriage, that's a really good thing. Because you can't take everything and make all kinds of changes. All you can do is, take, learn, and then try to take something away, that can help you along the way. We had lots of people help us along the way as we went. So we were not Christians when we got married. We got married at 22, so now you can do the math.
Well,
we finished college. We were not Christians then, and Carl, tell me what happened.
and then everything changed beginning one evening at work. When we first moved to Massachusetts, I worked for Raytheon. I worked in a displays lab, and we were designing radar displays. And myself and a peer were charged with the responsibility of defining what this brand new display was supposed to look like. And we were kind of running in circles, not qualified to do it. And a high-praised consulting engineer came in to help us, and we worked 6 and 7 days, day and night, to define how this display system should be organized. It was a tremendously interesting and beneficial opportunity for me. So one night, just this consultant and myself happened to be working, and our daughter was 2 years old. I knew enough about him that I found out his daughter was 16. And I asked him the question, how do I keep my daughter off drugs? Now, I was really thinking way far into the future. And his comment was, well, it's our family's common faith in Jesus Christ that has made the difference. And he pulls out a little Bible from his pocket, and he starts going through verses with me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I had so much respect for this guy, and now he's a weird Bible guy. But he was persistent, and he loved me, and obviously I did have respect for his engineering capability. And over time, he fed me books and books and books, of which I never read 10% of them. But I did decide that I was a sinner, that Jesus had paid the price for my sins, and I asked for forgiveness and turned my life over to Jesus Christ. And that changed everything about us, everything about our family, everything about where we were headed. And yes, we had established some goals. We probably didn't write those goals down before that, but they were happiness, We wanted our kids to be successful, and we wanted our kids to grow up to support themselves. We didn't want our kids living with us when they were 30 because they didn't have a job. But that was it. It was totally me-focused or my family-focused. And as I said, everything began to change. We started to believe that because we're living for something greater than ourselves, that our goals should be greater than ourselves as well. And we did things like have people live with us. We shared the possessions that God gave to us. We certainly began to give for the first time in our life, which we had never done before. And the verse in Ephesians that I quoted here really kind of says it all. For you were at once time darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light. So we were in darkness. We had no idea what the truth was, and God revealed to us His Son, Jesus, and we began to follow Him, and that made a significant change in the way we lived, in what we did with our time, our talent, and our treasure, and it made a difference in establishing goals for ourselves that were different than previously. So what happened to you?
So Carl became a Christian, and I thought he went nuts. So it really put a wedge between us because he was bringing around his Christian friends. Well, I was a Catholic girl turned Episcopal, turned actually at that point atheist, to tell you the truth. At 26, I was pretty much an atheist. I had no use for God whatsoever. We had a 2-year-old. I was pregnant again. We're going to have another baby in November. This was around maybe, Carl actually became a Christian on April 1st, on April Fool's Day. So I always think of that verse about becoming a fool for Christ with Carl. And anyway, I just fell apart because the man who could not get up to do anything before 7 o'clock in the morning, besides go to work, was getting up at 6 o'clock to go to a Bible study. And I thought, what has ever happened to him that he would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to a Bible study? And he brought his friends around me, and they witnessed to me, and this one man, Jack Geary, who we came to love dearly, he and his family, he kept on giving me books upon books upon books, and they piled, I could still see the television stand, they just piled up this high, and I was not really reading any of them. But then he gave me a book by C.S. Lewis. Well, I was an English major, and my first career was as a teacher, an English teacher. And I loved philosophy. I had a minor in philosophy. And this was by C.S. Lewis. He was a philosopher, and it was called Mere Christianity, and I started reading in it. And I got to the point where it said you have to choose whether or not you believe Jesus was a lunatic or was God. That's the choice you have to make. And I chose to believe that he was God. And that changed everything. And it changed slowly. It was like a point in time, someplace around June. I was probably about 4, 5, 6, 7 months, I don't know, pregnant, and whatever that is. And I didn't tell Carl right away. I kind of kept it to myself, but I could see that God was there and that there was a God. And so that just changed everything in my life. And as Carl said, it changed our goals. From living the good life, we were going to live the good life. We were going to go up with Mobile. He was an engineer. I was a teacher. We were going to buy the big house. We were going to have lots of cars. We had lots of friends already when we moved up here. But we were just going to do the whole social, wonderful thing. And that changed. It changed because our values changed. What was important to us all of a sudden started changing. We wanted to live a life that was godly, actually. This is what happened. We wanted to live a life that was godly. So it was important to us that our children know and follow Jesus, as well as become independent and be able to support themselves, which, by the way, they can. We even have grandchildren now who are independent and can support themselves. So that happened as well. But life changed for us. And we started ministry right from the beginning. We were mentored. We became, for 10 years, we ministered to young people, to teens, in a group. And some of them are still married. They're married now, and they're close friends. So our focus became more outward than inward, is what I would say, and as a witness. So I'd say our shared goal now is marriage ministry. Our shared goal is to end well, to have a good legacy for our children and our grandchildren, to stay together, Because if you ever think that you could ever leave your mate and not have it affect anybody or anything, you are so dead wrong. It affects everybody, so, and everything.
So as Kathy said, that we're becoming Christians causes us to focus on the future, and that's why she mentioned the word legacy. When you think of legacy, think of this. Imagine either your funeral or your retirement dinner. What would you like said about you? Would you like it said, well, okay, they bought the big house and they had 5 or 6 cars, or in my case, boat. Or would you like people to say, well, they served others and their kids served others. And that long-term focus is something that we didn't have. And our suggestion is that as you think about your marriage and you think about where strong marriages come from, thinking about shared goals and the long-term version of shared goals will really be helpful. Each year goals will be different. The some will be the same. I would hope anybody that's a believer in Jesus Christ that loves Jesus wants their kids to love Jesus, but you may have different educational goals, for instance, and so forth and so on. And we should do that. We should tune, to the extent that we can, the goals to fit the particular situation. So first thing we wanted to talk about was strong marriages start with shared goals. Second thing is shared friends. Shared friends provide a great support for a good marriage.
So right from the beginning, from the time we had lots of friends. When we first came up here, Carl was an engineer, we had his engineering friends. I was a teacher, I had my teaching friends. We moved into an apartment, and somehow this woman who ran the apartment tried to set up couples that were just married or like ages. She actually made it one of her goals to actually put people kind of in the same place. And so we went to an apartment building, and in that apartment building we met probably our closest friend that we have today still. And we moved to the same street, and we raised children together for 30 years. She now lives in Georgia, and unfortunately her husband died about 10 years ago. But we ended up with a shared friend who was not a Christian, by the way, when we first moved there, but became a Christian through Carl's testimony. Nor were we. But, so we had friends. It's not that we didn't have friends. We had lots of friends. We had so many friends that we couldn't even spend enough time with friends at that point. And then, and we had friends on our street on John Robinson Drive in Hudson. The neighborhood was young. We had lots of friends there. And then all of a sudden we became Christians. And what we did with our friends had to dramatically change. Because we were really bad people, but we went to card parties, we played bridge, we had drinks at bridge, we were still living the good life. We really were. And all of a sudden, Carl became a Christian, and he was not going to drink anymore. And so that is something, we don't believe that you're a Christian and you should have a glass of wine or a glass of beer. We believe you should not get drunk, but we're not anti-alcohol. But all of a sudden, Carl was not drinking, and that put a wedge, because all of a sudden these people saw something different that they didn't like. And so our friends that had been our friends for a while, all of a sudden saw something different, and they didn't like what they saw. And so we were somewhat rejected by our friends for somewhat. We also started just going to church. We also had a group of friends that we did Bible study with. Every Wednesday night we had a Bible, we were with a group of friends in Sudbury that we did Bible study with. We became part of a teen ministry. On Friday nights, we did teen ministry. It just went on and on. We went to church on Sundays. So life changed for us. And it really changed dramatically. We had a second child and then a third child. And we kept, I guess what we really want to talk about is the fact that we were in groups with Christian friends from the time we were married, about 4 years. That's when we became Christians. And we have always had a group of friends who are strong Christian married people. We are now with a group that actually started here at Trinity, and we've been with them well over 20 years. And they're meeting tonight at my house. We're having dinner together. And some have moved away. They're up in New Hampshire. but we're still meeting with those friends, and they're all still married, and they have strong Christian homes. That has made a gigantic difference in our life. But we've been with other groups from the time we were married until now.
And what's interesting, the 5 people that are in this home Bible study that Kathy was talking about are our closest friends. And if I was doing something I shouldn't do, those 4 guys would call me up and sit me down and, talk to me about it, etc. I would do the same thing to them, and that's true for the women in the Bible study. They are people that support us because they understand what our goals are. They have the same goals for their kids that we have for our kids, and that makes a significant difference. The other thing, going back a little bit to when we first met this couple in the apartment that we lived in Framingham, is God was sort of chasing us and looking out for us from the very beginning, which is really neat to think about. This woman that Kathy referred to, that we met in the apartment, saw our car with a New Jersey license plates on it, because that's where we lived at the time. She was from New Jersey. Being an outgoing person that she was, she came and chased us. Little did she know, or we know, that about 2 years, 3 years after that, Kathy and I would come to faith in Christ. And we didn't know at the time, but her husband was a believer, and she was not. And when I first became a Christian, I started sharing my faith with everybody. I was absolutely, totally annoying. When we would visit my sister down in New Jersey, I'd go set all the radio stations in their cars and in their bathroom that they listened to in the morning to the Christian radio station. Other than the tracks that we placed on, it was really, none of that stuff is bad, but I was way over the top in terms of annoying. Well, I found out that this neighbor, the woman's name was Ann, that we met in Framingham in the apartment, that she was not a believer. And so one night I walked over to her house and said, Ann, you need to understand something. And I led her to Christ. And her family became Christians, and my sister's family in New Jersey became Christians. And all this happened because somebody shared Christ with us, somebody who I happened to work with. So what's the point of all that? It's really neat, especially at our age, to look back and see God, the pattern that God had throughout all of our lives, kind of chasing us, putting these things in our way that we could trip over them. And it's then our love for each other and our love for Him that got us interested in having a good marriage and then trying to help others who are having a good, helping them have a good marriage as well. So the point here with Shared Friends is you will benefit from being around like-minded people who have the same values as yourself, and you'll probably need to work to find them. And there's nothing wrong with having non-Christian friends. We all ought to have them, because that's our opportunity to share faith in Christ. But our Christian friends can influence us positively, especially as it relates to marriage. Kathy has some interesting statistics on the friends that we had way back when I worked at Raytheon, and the Christian friends that we have met around the same time.
Of the group that were pretty much a close-knit group from his Raytheon engineering friends, of those couples that we were with, none are married today. Absolutely not one of them are married today. They're all divorced. So there were about 7 or 8 of them, and they're divorced. Their marriage is dissolved. That has affected us, actually, and we've lost contact with some of them. But it affects you negatively. It really does. And I feel sad about the fact that some of them divorced. And we've lost contact with a lot of them. Out of our 16 Christian friends, close through the years, because we've had a lot of years. Remember, we're married 50 years. We've had a lot of years. One couple divorced.
And these aren't people that, like we've met in the last couple of years. We're talking about people that we met 40 years ago, people who we've seen longitudinally for a long number of years, and the divorce rate is just so significantly lower. So our encouragement is to have good friends, but work on your marriage, because there is nothing more valuable in life than being in love with your best friend. And from time to time, you may think, well, things aren't going well. She really bugs me. I really, or you may be saying, woman may be saying, he really bugs me. The right person to be married to is the person you're married to now. Do you remember Fiddler on the Roof? Remember that movie, that play? And towards the end of the play, you like it? Yeah, it's one of our favorites. Towards the end of that play, remember the Do You Love Me? That wonderful song that they sang. It started by them, after being married for 25 years, I think she says to him, or he says to her, him or which, do you love me? And this is because all their kids are getting married and falling in love, etc., versus arranged marriages. And she responds and says, I guess I do. I've been married to you for 25 years. The point is, no matter where your marriage is, except in the case of abuse, it can be better if you and I work to love our spouses. So sure, we're going to have ups and downs, but when you're down, remember the person you're married to is the person you want to be with, and work hard at maintaining that marriage. One of the ways you can do that is through good friends.
And a lot of people say we don't have the time to meet. We don't have the money to meet. We don't have time to go be part of a small group. We're both working, we have children, we have this and that. Guess what? We had 3 children. We used to go out every Wednesday from the time our kids were young. We got a babysitter, we went out, and we were part of a small group that did Bible study every single Wednesday. We did it year-round, all the time. I guess we can do it this summer. In the summer, we went up to camp to meet with some of these friends up in Maine, but we did that all the time. We spent the time, the energy, and the money to do this. You do have the time, and energy, and the money to do what's important. And what's important is being part of a group of like-minded people. And that's like-minded married friends. You'll keep their marriage strong, and they'll keep your marriage strong. I think it's one of the things that's kept our marriage strong through the years. It's one of the main things. So I just can't even contend with the fact that you don't have enough time. Because you know what? You do have enough time. We had enough time, and we were incredibly busy. Carl worked. I was fortunate to be at home mom. But when I was no longer at home mom, we still have the time to go and do that. You can do it.
The other thing that, relative to shared friends, that was good for us is we got involved in some kind of ministry from the beginning. And ministry allowed us to do 2 things. See some other Christian marriages around us, in many cases were married more years, so they could model to us. And secondly, it reinforced our belief system, because we kept hearing the same thing, not just on Sundays, but during the week as well, as we were part of the ministry. And then thirdly, we gave of ourselves because we participated in that ministry, various ministries over the years. So our encouragement is to do that as well. So strong marriages come from shared goals, shared friends, and then shared experiences. And this is probably the best and most important thing to walk away with. We need to spend time with our spouses alone, if at all possible. No matter what you have to do, give up coffee, don't go stop at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts to save money to get a babysitter to go out on a date night. If money is a little bit of an issue, find a friend who will share kids, and that way allow you to still go out. And you don't have to spend a lot of money on a date. A couple of years ago, we went to Fruitlands here in Harvard, thank you, on 110, and I got a bottle of wine and some cheese and some bread, and we parked on a beautiful hill overlooking the western view there, and we sat in the back of our SUV with the hatchback open, and we had wine and cheese. Now, I don't know whether the Fruitlands people approved of that or whatever, but we did it. It didn't cost us, more than a couple of dollars. You could do things really, really inexpensively. We've also done some expensive things as well. But the point is, you need to spend time together. The scripture from Ecclesiastes says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If one of them falls down, one can help the other person up. At our age, we do need some help getting up. But pity anybody who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. Hey, that sounds exciting. How can one keep warm alone?
Except now that we have a king-size bed.
It's hard to find one of those.
It is.
You have to commute to the other side of the road, right?
And the killer is when we have a king-size bed, and he's like way over here, and I've got this much room. I'm like, wait, we have a king-size bed. And he'll say, I'm cold. And he's cold because my side of the bed has a heated pad. And his doesn't. Because his side broke, but he didn't want a new one. Actually, I have to buy it. That's the secret I should get this year. But anyway,
So, when Peter was about 9 months old, that's our youngest son, I knew that Kathy really liked me to plan dates. I do not do a very good job of it, but one Christmas, I got this wonderful idea to plan something. I wrote it all down, put it in an envelope, and left it under the tree. And it is one of our favorite things we did together. And Kathy will describe how she felt about it and what we did.
well, it started about a couple of years before that. We had 3 kids. Peter was about maybe 7 months old, and we couldn't even look at each other. I mean, you can't even go to the bathroom by yourself. We had 3
You
little
did
kids.
that, right? Really?
You know, and so we were losing each other, and we were aware of the fact that we were losing each other. And Carl was traveling to Billerica and back, and he would pass the Neshoba Valley and the ski area. And we both liked to ski, but hadn't really had time or energy or put anything into it. And he came home one night and said, we're going to take ski lessons once a week. And so we started taking ski lessons in Neshoba Valley. And we were on our little baby skis, and we learned to swim on little baby slopes, and then we got to our bigger skis. And finally we were able to go up north and ski on real hills. And then a couple Christmases, because we did that for a couple of years, and then one Christmas, Carl handed me an envelope. And I'm thinking, like, what is ever in this envelope for my Christmas present? And I opened it up, and in it was this thing that said they were going to spend 2 nights at a place called Amity House. And Amity House was very near Waterville Valley, and that was a place we had skied previously. And it was a bed and breakfast, and we were going to go away for 2 nights together. And I was like so excited, you know, that we were going to be doing this. And I can still remember the night, like the Friday night, we were driving up there, and it seemed kind of, I don't know, a little foreboding and spooky and mysterious and everything that we're going to go away together. And we got there, and it was a wonderful bed and breakfast. I don't have an idea what the room was like, not a clue what the room was like. And we were skiers that we had to get up at first thing in the morning, and we were up by 7 o'clock in the morning or 6. We were on the slopes by 8:30. Whenever they opened, we were there on the slopes, and we were up at the first run, and we were down with the last run. So we were exhausted.
And we ate our lunch out of apples in our pockets because you want to get every single minute of what you pay for.
Right. And the apples sometimes froze because it was so cold on the slopes. But we were not going to miss any of it. But I can still remember going to Amity House and being away with Carl. And we did that a couple of years in a row. And then we went to other places to ski as well in a way. And that began our journey of going away together for 1 or 2 nights. And we could only do it maybe about once a year. We just didn't have, I was not working. We were not a 2 income people. We were working on 1 income, and even though Carl's salary was quite good, we still could not afford to be going away lots. But we did that, and that built something for us that was something that drew us together in a way nothing else could draw us together.
And what's interesting is 2 weekends ago, we were driving to Newport for a marriage retreat weekend. And on the way down there, we were talking about this talk, and we said, hey, what's an interesting shared experience? And Kathy and I instantly thought, independently of eech other, Amity House. So the point is, sometimes you can do some things that you think are relatively simple that have lifelong lasting memories. So we would encourage you to do that kind of thing. not always do the shared experiences that we had go well. We wanted to go away for a weekend, and I made arrangements to get a room at the Salem Inn in Salem, Massachusetts. And we got to the bedroom, and Kathy's reaction was?
I opened the door, and now Carl, my husband is always on the edge of, let's do it as inexpensively as possible. Even
Nice
now,
words for cheap.
you know, even now sometimes he'll go back.
There's
Thank
a
you.
difference between.
Well, you know what? We're so old now, we don't have to be frugal anymore. We really don't. We've stayed in some very expensive places through the years too now, especially our later years. But this room, Carl had asked for an inexpensive room. Well, I opened the door to this room.
And then I asked for an inexpensive room, and then I said, do you have anything any better? Give me your best rate. And I said, do you have anything any better? And she said, well, we got another one. And
I opened the door to the room, and literally, I walked in the room, and I was like, where's the room? It's really what went through my mind. Where is the room?
you opened the door, and the door hit the bed.
I walked into the room, and there was the bed, and then there was like this thing across where you could hang your clothes, and then the door, I mean, the bed, and the bathroom door hit, and there was no room in the room. It was a room with a bed in it. Literally, if you put a bed in a room, and maybe a lamp, and kind of, I think there was a TV maybe, and a small bedroom. It was like, by far, the less romantic thing that you can imagine for going away for a weekend. So, but interestingly enough.
Most important thing.
Jane, thank you. You know what? We still remember that today. I still remember the feeling of opening that door and walking in. We had a great time that weekend. We really had a great time. I can remember one place because I'm a foodie. Love to go and eat. I had the best banana Foster I've ever had there. So we just had a great time. So I think the big thing is you need to be really intentional. You really need to think about your marriage. You need to spend the time, energy, money on your marriage now, if you haven't been, or continue to do that, because you don't want to be spending it on a divorce lawyer, or counseling, or other things that don't matter. You really want to spend it on your marriage, and building that legacy, and building your family, and yourself as a couple. My mom used to say something really interesting. I was one of 6 kids. She used to say, don't ask me to come between you. Don't come between me and your father. Because she said, someday you're going to leave, and I'm going to be left with him. And so I need to have a good relationship with your father. So don't do anything to mar that. And,
Yeah, in fact, I remember my parents saying, number one priority, my father said, number one priority in this house is your mother to me.
Yep.
And then it's you people.
So you're not married to your children.
No.
And believe me, your children will leave. Our children have left. You're not married to your grandchildren. Your grandchildren also will leave you. I have great-grandchildren. They're not going to stay with me either. So, but Carl and I will be together.
So in summary, our encouragement is that you establish goals with your spouse, that you work on establishing friends that can positively influence your marriage, and most important, work on having experiences that will enhance your marriage. So we probably talked a little too long, but in the couple minutes that are left, please ask us any questions, and Kathy will take all our notes.
I also think that there's a wonderful thing is a regrouping. Sometimes you need time away from your spouse. Not like a free, big, gigantic vacation, but one thing that I find with my husband and I, like every summer he has a weekend where he goes camping with the boys. I have a weekend where I go camping with the girls. And it re-energizes the both of us, you know, just because, and of course we also go out and we have, you know, together, but it re-energizes the both of us in a way that, you know, I find very fruitful.
If you find that works for your marriage, it's helpful for him,
Yeah.
helpful to you.
It's all of his
That's
buddies
great.
from college. They're all fraternity brothers, and you know these they're very, very tight. So, you know, I would never say, no, you can never be around them ever again. You know, I think that it's very important.
What you want to do is make sure that all those activities add to your marriage, not
Absolutely.
subtract them. But that's a good point.
I find that communication is very disproportional, so when there's a lot of communication between the spouses, things go better. I'm curious, you've been married 50 years, how has the communication changed over the past 50 years? And has that been very important to your marriage?
Oh, it's really easy. I've learned to say yes.
Don't even say that. He can't hear me sometimes now. That changes.
It's the truth.
And nothing can be done about it, which is really sad, because he's got the kind of hearing loss they cannot correct, which is unfortunate. But communication,
I think we understand ourselves better than we did. Amy was talking about the fact that that men in general don't pick up hints, and you know we don't. And so I've encouraged Kathy to look me in the eye and say, "Honey, I really, you know, that garbage as I'm sitting there."
you need to have that. And if you don't have that, then you're not communicating. And I think a lot of us think we are communicating with our screens, with our texting and stuff. And, you know, we really aren't communicating. So I think you just need to be intentional. I think for us, it's been like this. I mean, sometimes we're really good at communicating, and sometimes I'm like, would you get off that screen and turn around and look at me? I mean, that's where we're at now. Would you just get off your screen? He's an IT guy. He's always on a screen. I don't know what he's on a screen for. Is he on a screen because he's working? He's doing a job? Is he playing? Is he doing church work? What's he doing on a screen? I don't know, but he's on that screen. So I think for us, a lot of the new communication has caused us to have some friction at this point, and we need to work that out. And you know, remember I said you're on a journey? Yeah, you're on a journey, and it changes. We need to be intentional, just like you guys need to be intentional. We just need to be intentional. You need to work at it, and you need to be really, really, really give your husband grace and forgiveness. So, because that's really where it's at. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but
I was just curious,
you know,
from your perspective.
has it changed? We communicate more now without people in the house lots of times.
Perhaps we can talk afterwards about it too. Amy, thank you. Thank you very much.
Real thank you for being such a good audience.